What kind of man conquers most of the known world? Before turning 30 years old. A man worshipped like a god, feared like a demon, and followed by armies willing to march into hell itself. But here's the disturbing part. Alexander the Great didn't just conquer kingdoms. He became obsessed with something far darker, immortality, and some believe that obsession ultimately destroyed him. Backstory and context. The story begins in ancient Macedonia, a cold kingdom of mountains, mud, steel, and war. The sound of clashing swords echoed through stone courtyards. Horses stomped across rain-soaked earth, and inside a royal palace, lit by flickering fire. A child was born in 356 BC, Alexander. From the beginning, strange stories surrounded him. Some claimed lightning struck the temple the night he was born. Others whispered that his mother believed he was the son of Zeus himself. Whether true or not, those stories planted something dangerous inside the young prince, the belief that he was destined for more than humanity. But that was only the beginning. Alexander's father, King Philip II, was a brutal conqueror. He forged Macedonia into a military machine. Soldiers trained endlessly beneath freezing skies. Spears glimmered like walls of iron, and young Alexander watched everything, learning, studying, waiting. At only 13 years old, he was taught by one of the greatest minds in history. Aristotle, philosophy, science, medicine, war. Alexander absorbed it all like fire-consuming dry wood. But knowledge alone wasn't enough. He wanted glory, the kind that would make the entire world remember his name forever. One story still fascinates historians today. A wild horse named Bucephalus terrified everyone in the kingdom. No soldier could tame it. The animal kicked violently, foam dripping from its mouth. But Alexander noticed something strange. The horse feared its own shadow, so he slowly turned it toward the sun and climbed onto its back. The beast suddenly calmed. King Philip stared at his son in disbelief, before reportedly saying, "My son, seek a kingdom equal to yourself. Macedonia is too small for you." And those words would haunt history forever. Then came the moment that changed everything. King Philip was assassinated, murdered during a celebration. The smell of wine still filled the air when chaos erupted. Screams echoed through the palace, and suddenly, 20-year-old Alexander became king. But many believed he wouldn't survive long. Too young, too reckless, too arrogant. His enemies prepared to tear the kingdom apart. Alexander responded with terrifying speed. Cities that rebelled were crushed. Entire populations disappeared beneath fire and steel. One city, Thebes, resisted him. Alexander destroyed it so completely that survivors said the streets ran red with blood. And after that, Greece fell silent, because everyone understood one terrifying truth. A new conqueror had arrived. Alexander then turned east, toward the greatest empire on earth, Persia, an empire so massive it stretched across continents. Its king, Darius III, commanded enormous armies. Most believed Alexander was marching toward suicide, but Alexander welcomed danger. The deeper he marched into enemy territory, the more fearless he became, or perhaps, the more unstable. At the Battle of Issus, thunder rolled across dark skies while thousands crashed together in violent chaos. Metal screamed against metal. Horses collapsed beneath spears. The smell of sweat, blood, and mud filled the air. And in the middle of it all, Alexander charged directly toward the Persian king himself, not hiding behind soldiers, not watching from safety, leading from the front like a man possessed. Darius fled, and suddenly, the impossible happened. The Persian Empire began to collapse, but that was only the beginning. Alexander kept marching. Egypt welcomed him like a god. Priests whispered ancient prophecies about him. Some claimed he visited a mysterious oracle hidden deep in the desert. What the oracle told him remains one of history's greatest mysteries. Because after that journey, Alexander changed. He no longer acted like a king. He acted like something divine. His eyes turned colder. His ambition became endless. And soon, he demanded people bow before him. Even his own men began fearing him. What he found next still haunts experts today. The deeper Alexander traveled into Asia, the stranger the stories became. Burning cities, mass executions, endless battlefields covered in corpses. Ancient historians described rivers turning red after combat, and yet somehow his soldiers kept following him. Why? Because Alexander seemed unstoppable, almost supernatural. Every battle ended the same way. Victory, victory, victory. Before turning 30, he had conquered more territory than almost anyone in human history. Greece, Egypt, Persia, parts of India, an empire stretching thousands of miles. The world itself seemed to bend beneath his feet. But power changes people, especially those who begin believing they are gods. One night, during a drunken feast, Alexander killed one of his closest friends, a man who had fought beside him for years. Witnesses claimed Alexander immediately regretted it. Some say he locked himself away in horror afterward. Others believed it revealed something darker. That conquest had poisoned his mind, that the young king who once dreamed of glory was slowly disappearing, and, still, he refused to stop marching, even when his exhausted army begged him to turn back. Rainstorms battered the camps. Soldiers collapsed from disease and hunger. Many believed they had reached the edge of the world itself. But Alexander wanted more, always more. Because for men like him, there is never enough. For climax/biggest reveal, then suddenly, at the peak of his power, Alexander the Great began dying. The year was 323 BC Babylon. A city filled with shadows, towering walls, strange rituals, and whispered omens. Ancient accounts describe terrifying signs before his death, crows falling from the sky, prophecies warning of doom, dark dreams haunting the king. Then came the fever. At first, Alexander kept giving orders from his bed, but day after day, his body weakened. The conqueror who survived endless war could barely move. His generals gathered around him in silence. The smell of incense drifted through the palace halls. Outside, thousands of soldiers waited anxiously. And then, Alexander lost the ability to speak. Imagine that moment. The man who conquered the world before 30, lying helpless in darkness, unable to save himself. And then came the most chilling mystery of all. How did he really die? Poison, disease, exhaustion, murder? No one knows for certain. Some ancient writers even claimed his body refused to decay for days after death, as if the world itself couldn't accept that Alexander was gone. Is that true, or merely legend? History still cannot fully answer. 5 ending plus, takeaway. Alexander the Great achieved what almost no human ever has. He conquered nearly everything before turning 30 years old. Empires collapsed beneath him. Kings bowed before him. Entire civilizations changed forever because of his ambition. And yet, in the end, he died alone in a distant city. No final victory, no immortality, only mystery. Maybe that's why his story still fascinates the world today. Because Alexander represents humanity's darkest temptation. The desire to conquer everything, even if it destroys you in the process. And perhaps the most disturbing question is this: if Alexander had lived longer, would there have been any part of the world left unconquered? If you enjoyed this dark journey into history, subscribe for more cinematic stories about legendary rulers, lost empires, and historical mysteries. And comment below. Do you think Alexander the Great was a genius, or a man consumed by dangerous ambition? And if you want to uncover another chilling story from the ancient world, Watch the next video now, because some legends never truly die.